بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. I begin with Allah's name, the most gracious, the most merciful, and we praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Lord of the universe, and we send our salutations, our peace and greetings to our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Peace and blessings be upon him. Uh, Greetings to everyone. Thank you so much for joining today. I'm sure many of you are preparing for your Hajj this year, and the focus today will be, inshallah ta'ala, about preparations for a healthy Hajj. And inshallah ta'ala, we have myself, my name is Abul Barakat, Mishkat Hasan, and I'm a guide for many years in Hajj, walillahi alhamd. And we are this year embarking on the Hajj bi'idhnillahi tabaraka wa ta'ala. And there are many of you joining from who have booked on the Nusuk platform, and we have our brother, our dear brother, and CEO of Everfit Coaching, which is our brother's name is Azad Hussain. Actually, he's actually a good friend of mine as well, and a colleague as well. And we're going to benefit from him, inshallah ta'ala, in terms of preparations for Hajj. Ultimately, we talked about, I'm sure from many of the advices that we have received from our scholars, that the best preparation is taqwa Allahi azza wa jal, which is to fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَتَزَوَّدُوا فَإِنَّ خَيْرَ الزَّادِ التَّقْوَى. So make provisions, and the best of provisions is taqwa. However, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, He says, وَلِلَّهِ عَلَى النَّاسِ حِجُّ الْبَيْتِ مَنِ اسْتَطَاعَ إِلَيْهِ سَبِيلًا. As you all perhaps know, that pilgrimage to this house, or it is upon the believers to make Hajj to Allah's house. For whom? Who is it? Yani wajiban fard upon. It is fard upon those who are able to, the ability. And under this ability comes the financial side of things, that you can afford to go. And number two, the safe passage or the means or transport. And also, most importantly, your health, being able to go, the ability to embark on Hajj. And it is an arduous, difficult journey. So today's session, inshallah ta'ala, Brother Azad will be leading, and I will be jumping in to provide any form of sort of perhaps if there's anything to if I feel that we can add to, inshallah, and suggest in regards to practical steps with the Hajj. Every moment, every step, alhamdulillah, we've been fortunate to perform Hajj and have experience in Hajj, and to see where those points are where we need to be aware of. And ultimately, all of us want to achieve a mabrur Hajj. A mabrur Hajj is a Hajj that is full of good deeds, and with that Allah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us that. Keep making dua, inshallah, even from now, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala yassir umurana and makes it easy for us. But ultimately, if we don't have the sihha and the health to undertake the Hajj, and you hear a lot of the times the Haji cough, or people going there and falling unwell. So it's always, as doctors always say, it's always good to be prepared, and prevention is better than cure. So with that, inshallah, I'll pass it on to our brother Azad Hussain. Jazakumullahu khairan. May Allah bless you. Please go ahead.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah. Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Thank you for that lovely introduction, and welcome first and foremost to all of our brothers and sisters from the groups that we are with. As you know, as Sheikh has introduced, I will be a guide, inshallah, this year with Abdul Latif Jamil. Also, there are brothers here from Hasan Travel and Tours, as Sheikh Mishkat leads. We have brothers and sisters here from Hunafa. We have brothers and sisters from Be Explorer and Ithra Al Khair. So, welcome to you guys, and congratulations on taking this step in trying to prepare physically for this journey. And for those of you guys who have been through this process, which is all of you guys, of course, we've gone through this mental stress. We've gone through clicking all the buttons on the Nusuk platform, and we've prepared financially, we're prepared spiritually, and continue to do so under the guidance of our shuyukh. And now, inshallah, if you haven't already started, it's definitely a good time to start preparing physically. With that in mind, at the end of this webinar, inshallah, you should have some kind of structure as to what you guys can literally start doing from tomorrow. So you can prepare the best that you can. And this is just a short webinar. By no means is it fully comprehensive, but 7 points we wanted to discuss with you guys, and inshallah, something for you to take away from each one of these points. I should caveat this with everything that I'm giving to you is not medical advice. And for that, you should speak to your registered medical practitioner, inshallah. So with that said, let's get into this in a linear fashion. And of course, the first things first that we are all going to be doing is ultimately we are all going to be traveling. And I wanted to discuss this webinar in terms of the physical demands that it has, as well as mental, some of them, and some of the things that we could do to try and mitigate some of those things. For example, travel. First things first, of course, we're all going to be traveling. And you guys have heard of this whole thing about being jet lagged. You often hear jet lag, jet lagged. But what does it mean to be jet lagged? Of course, when you are traveling, all of us, we have a body clock. It's known as your circadian rhythm. And that's your natural biological clock. So people immediately change behaviors when they're traveling. Oftentimes, you will see that people prepare late into the night, wake up very early, travel off, and it already sets them off. Why? Because their circadian rhythm is off. And of course, this provides this disorienting feeling or disorientating feeling. And it continues over into other things. So, for example, and this is, of course, this starts from a mental process in and of itself. For example, a lot of people will travel. They say, well, we're traveling, so we're not going to drink because we're going to have to use public bathrooms. People travel, so they eat different foods. Just to use sometimes anecdotes, I like to use anecdotes because it helps people remember things. So my mum, for example, whenever we're traveling, it's a bit of an occasion, and she'll often end up cooking pilau. And I go around to her house, and first thing in the morning, subhanAllah, I'm supposed to eat like oily pilau. And of course, it just upsets your stomach from the get-go. Um, there's something known as traveler's constipation. It's not a medical term, but you'll find oftentimes when people travel, they get this traveler's constipation. Perhaps it's a psychological thing, but perhaps it's a number of many other things. Number one, the fact that people actually change their nutrition. People are exposed to different things. The social cues are different. Food choices are different. You're drinking a lot less. And of course, you have this uncomfortable feeling of being stuck in one place and also being constipated. Another thing that we face is something known as deep vein thrombosis. And this is where you get a clot in your legs. And of course, it can be quite dangerous, in particular if this clot travels to other parts of your body, such as your lungs and so forth. And there are particular demographics who are vulnerable to this. So, for example, over 60s, people who are overweight are twice as likely to suffer from deep vein thrombosis. Or people who are diabetic are more than 4.5 times more likely to suffer from diabetes. So what can we do? Some of these things. One of the advices that I would give you, brothers and sisters, is make sure you pack well in advance, such that even the night before, you get the sleep that you need. And sleep is another component that we'll talk about later on in this webinar, inshallah. But you pack well before so that you get the sleep that you need, so you wake up all rested. Second thing is, in regards to traveler's constipation and so forth, try and temper your mindset. If you are one of those people, and I meet many people who have this issue, and I meet many people who are chronically dehydrated in the course of my coaching. So one of the things that I do is provide health coaching, in particular weight loss coaching. And the amount of brothers and sisters I find, brothers in particular I work with, who are chronically dehydrated. Dehydration, of course, brothers and sisters, will lead to many things that we'll discuss slightly later, but definitely constipation is one of those things. And one of the ways that you want to deal with this is prepare yourself mentally. Yes, some of you guys will be away from home 2-3 weeks. What are you going to do if you don't use public bathrooms? And of course, in certain situations like Mina, Arafah, Muzdalifah, unfortunately, we won't have a choice. So it's best to prepare for yourself, prepare this, or prepare mentally for this from now onwards. Now is the time to ultimately get used to it. Fiber. Fiber is something all of us should be having in our nutrition. You might hear this term fiber. What actually is fiber? Fiber is a long chain carbohydrate, and it's found in things like whole grains, fruits, and vegetables. There are two types of fiber in particular, soluble and insoluble, and they have very many health benefits. They help our digestive system. For example, soluble fiber is something which absorbs water into the foods that you're eating, and it helps soften your stools and so forth. Insoluble fiber is something which adds roughage or bulk to your stools and helps push along. This aids in everything from digestion to weight management to blood sugar regulation, which of course is very important um, on this journey because it is a physical undertaking that we are doing in Hajj. And of course, we want to make sure our energy levels are as stable as possible throughout the entire course of this journey. The next thing that we'll talk about, inshallah, um, is the crowds. And of course, from the moment we get into the airport, we are going to be surrounded by large numbers of people. And with that comes in and of its own risks and demands. So, for example, there will be times where you are physically squeezed into a crowd when you're making tawaf and so forth. But other times you will always be amongst crowds and you will have, communal spaces and so forth, right? So, what is it that we can do in those situations? Now, I think we need to understand, well, it's very obvious that there will be people from all around the world joining this place, but there will be varying levels of hygiene. You might think, you know what, subhanAllah, this is the most pure place in the world, and of course it is, and it's the most sanctified place in the world. But that doesn't mean to say you won't catch a bug, and therefore you do have to be that much more careful. And people's hygiene, things like, for example, hand washing routine, these things are dictated much on a personal basis and even on a cultural basis. So, for example, statistics show that Bosnian populations, 95% of the population have this culture of washing their hands more so than, for example, the UK population, who have where rates are as low as 35%. I'm sorry to say, most of us who are from the UK. Hopefully, this doesn't reflect the
Muslim.
Muslim demographic, but nonetheless, this is something we should be wary of. And of course, our Sheikh would advise, in accordance with the Sunnah,
Yeah.
something that we should be doing, in particular at certain times. For example, before we eat, after we eat, after we use the toilet, and so forth.
Yeah.
Um, Mashallah, our Sheikh here, he's done, if I'm not mistaken, over 24 Hajj in his lifetime, in his very young lifetime, mashallah, and which is invaluable experience. And one thing that I've seen traveling with him, mashallah, and may Allah preserve him, is that he doesn't seem to fall ill during these things. And he has specific, what do you call them, hacks, if you like, hacks where he will use, and these things come in really handy, especially in shared spaces. So, for example, many of us will be in hotels where we are in a buffet system and we'll be serving our food. One of the things that you could do where you know that you will be eating with your right hand is when you go and serve yourself with these utensils, try to use your left hand so then that same hand doesn't go into your mouth. And where we have this population from all over the world, we're not risking
Brother
ourselves.
Azad, you've observed me too much. Subhanallah. MashaAllah.
We learn from the best.
No,
Alhamdulillah.
no, no. It's just, yeah. So for as can I jump in? Sorry. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you. Look, it is something that obviously as may Allah keep us all healthy and well, and I'm sure everyone will be fine. And but we have to be a little bit. So the whole point of today, I think, is for everyone here is to really just be a bit sort of uh take care to sort of have it in your mind, in the back of your mind, that yeah, am I being a bit more the personal hygiene, meaning hygiene, you're with, as you were saying, close contact with people, and somebody might be unwell, right? One person it takes, and then through viral sort of, you can catch something and then it passes on and it passes on and it passes on. And one thing that I've sort of, because we as group leaders sometimes, or organizers, we can say, or guides, or people involved in, management, or at least in some form of, so where a lot of people are relying on us, we have to be in good health. So subhanallah, yes, like you said, even in the buffet, sometimes I'm very careful about these things. You never know, something can pass on, and it's really something that, to be honest, like brother Azad, you mentioned about nadafa in particular, in general, sorry, in general. Nadafa is, what is it called? It's to be clean. Muslims should be, we are, alhamdulillah, but um, sometimes we're not. I'm sorry to say. Um, uh, uh, it's something that I've just what we notice as well with Muslims, even in UK. I know you're from UK and I'm from UK, but we have this notion. We feel that we're privileged or we're right. Sorry, I hope you don't mind me saying this, everyone. And we feel that we're from the developed world, and we go. But I see with my eyes, brothers and sisters. I'm talking as a guide, right, for many many years. British pilgrim, Western pilgrims coming to Hajj, and they're filthy. Forgive me, right? And it's may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, guide us all. Perhaps, I don't know. It's maybe your certain um, sort of the feeling of being able to litter, for example, if people are littering beside you, right? And it goes with tawaf, it goes with anything, even rituals. People just like to follow what other people are doing or feel it's okay because others are doing it. But let's, the aim here today is, inshallah, let's try and condition ourselves from the get-go that we're going to be in the state of ihram. Let's really, watch everything that we do. And I could touch on so many things come to my mind, and I'll be taking up all the time, but I just want to say Islam says at-tahuru shatrun min al-iman or nisfun min al-iman. Purity is half of the faith. Tahara, or to be clean, is half of faith. So all of this, what you're talking about, is from al-Islam. But we see, like, I don't know, it's just people don't wash their hands, people don't, people cough in other people's faces, unfortunately. Sorry, I have to be a bit like sort of in, raw in that sense, but it's something to be aware of. If I'm sneezing, I've got to be aware there's people next to me in the tent, you cover your, use a tissue or something. These kind of things are very important. Also, I would say there's many things I can touch on, but I'd like to, because you touched on that
Yes,
issue about
absolutely.
close contact and crowds. A question is posed about, are we allowed to use masks? Right, this is a mas'ala. So generally in the COVID period, it was allowed, and all scholars permitted it. Now there it is contentious. Some people say still it shouldn't be used unless when you're in a close contact area, okay, where you feel that you are unwell. Otherwise, not it's better to keep away from it. But others, some lenient scholars say that you can wear it all the time. I don't think that's the case. But when you feel that you're unwell or somebody is unwell next to you, then you need to protect yourself, then do so. But yeah, I just thought I'll jump in on that. And the fitrah of Islam, of a person is that they have personal hygiene. We're taught to remove unwanted hair, clip our nails, and all of these things. Subhanallah, it's very sometimes it's concerning to me, like in Muzdalifah and Mina, and I want everyone to remember this moment today, what we say. Tell me how it's going to be post Muzdalifah and post Mina, and how much litter and how much people in their tents, right, don't put things away in the bins provided. Next to them, beside them, there's just food and food and food and food, because everybody is bringing their snack bars and things for use, so in case of they're thinking that they're going to starve, but there's going to be food there. And you only need it in certain times. Don't take too much, inshallah ta'ala. For Jazakumullah khairan, I just wanted to add those things. There's so much info that we can go through.
Building on some of Sheikh's points about, for example, these shared spaces and whether you should wear a mask and so forth. But again, these are some common things. For example, in being in a crowded space where there's so many people, like the Mina encampment and so forth. But
Mhm.
for example, we suffer from basic things like, or basic ailments like coughs, sneezing, and things like that. It's just common practice to do this in a tissue or a handkerchief, or wash your hands, or make sure you have some kind of hand sanitizer. And of course, brothers and sisters on the group have been asking, can we use this alcoholic non sanitizer? And of course, the Sheikh is here, you can ask. But there are also non-alcoholic hand sanitizers, which kill 99.9% of bacteria also, one of which I've actually bought. And to give you that statistic, as how hand washing can reduce diarrheal illnesses, according to the CDC, 58%. It can reduce it by up to 58% in particular for people who have weak immune systems. And as the Sheikh said, our environment is going to be shared, in particular in places like Mina. And of course, one of the things that we want to encourage this clean and tidy environment is by making sure that we clean after ourselves to the best degree possible. Some of the questions brothers and sisters ask are about the toilets in those shared spaces. From what we understand in the last few years at least, the hygiene levels have increased significantly.
Absolutely.
But of course, that doesn't negate your obligation to wash your hands and of course keep sanitizers with you, small sanitizers and so forth. Moving on to the next point, physical activity. Physical activity. I want to do a little experiment with you guys. And most of the guys have smartphones, or if I'm not mistaken, everybody does. And it has some kind of activity tracker, in particular if it's activated. I want to give you guys 30 seconds just so you can go into your phone and work out what your daily average step count is or weekly average step count is. So 30 seconds, we'll give it now, inshallah.
I don't know if mine's records. Bismillah.
Okay. So for those of you guys who are going to Mecca first, of course, you're going to go to Mecca and do your Umrah first and so forth. During your Umrah, the first thing you'll do, as soon as you arrive, most probably, is during this Umrah alone, you're likely to walk over 20,000 steps. And according to my calculations, some of the calculations I've done, your step count is likely to be between 20 to 40,000 steps. Now, if you've pulled your phone out and your current daily average is 2,000, 5,000, 3,000, 10,000, even 10,000. 10,000 is a fantastic step count, by the way. If you're doing 10,000 steps a day, brilliant. But just to give you an understanding of what the physical demand will be, it will be between 20 and 40,000. And brothers and sisters, as I said, the physical preparation is something that we need to be engaged in from now onwards. If you imagine 20,000 steps, and just to give you a calculation of how this works, circumambulating the Kaaba when it's absolutely dead, the closest circumference, the smallest circumference is likely to be around 96 meters. Let's just call it 100 meters, right? That's on the first floor mataf area. On the other floors, it's around 700 meters. So if you do 7 circumambulations, we are talking approximately 5 kilometers just to do 7 circumambulations. The distance between Safa and Marwa, sorry, I use my hands a lot. I do British Sign Language as well. But the distance between Safa and Marwa is approximately 450 meters, right? Now you walk that 7 times, that's approximately 3.6 kilometers. So just there doing that uh, approximates to around over 10,000 steps. That's ignoring you coming out your hotel. That's ignoring you walking to the haram. That's ignoring you maybe looking for your partner. That's ignoring you maybe going down for lunch, going out shopping, doing any other thing. So again, the likely possibility is you're going to be doing this uh, over 20,000 steps a day. Now, in sports science, when you engage in a physical activity, they have something called positive adaptation and negative adaptation. Positive adaptation is when you adjust to it, you become stronger, and so on and so forth. Negative adaptation is when you have fatigue buildup, right? There's this recovery demand. When you all of a sudden do this activity, oh my gosh, my legs are aching, and so forth. Brothers and sisters, you don't want to be at a point where you go there and all of a sudden you're obliged to do 20 to 40,000 steps and your legs have swollen up, your muscles aren't used to it. The next day you need to be out. You've got all of this water retention and so forth. One of the ways in which you reduce this negative adaptation is by getting yourself used to it more and more now. So from here on out, and walking generally is something which has a low recovery demand. Most people can walk, you know, good distances without getting very easily tired. However, there are people who don't walk so much, unfortunately. And again, anecdote, conversation with my wife. And I say to my wife, we have to really start getting prepared. Alhamdulillah, we've started doing our walking and so on and so forth together. Once a week or twice a week, at least we'll try and go out for a long walk together. But I said to her, look, this is what we should be doing. And she said, well, so and has gone and done it, and such has gone and done it, and they're not particularly fit. And I said, look, there's a difference between doing something and doing something well. Brothers and sisters, you do not want to be in that position where you are exhausted, you are tired, or you're getting ill. The most important day of your life comes, the day of Arafah, and you are run down with fever or illness or exhaustion and so forth, because there's going to be other demands on you that we'll speak about, inshallah, as well. One of the ways that you could do this now is start walking as soon as you possibly can. For those of you guys who are with Hasan Travel Tours, yesterday you would have listened to a beautiful lecture by Sheikh Mishkat, where he was talking about how can you increase your step count from now on. Brothers, for example, 5 times a day, walking to the masajid, going, as often as you can, taking an extended route, things like taking the stairs instead of the lift, going for a walk at lunchtime. Try to include that as much as possible within your day, but also maybe have a day in the week where you go out for an extended walk, so your body's actually used to that. And brothers and sisters, you may think there's something trivial, but think about it. You've come this far. You've invested this much, not just in terms of money, but time, spirituality, you know, psychologically. Asking you to do this will only enhance your Hajj experience, inshallah.
Inshallah. Inshallah.
And increase your starting point. The advice always is increase from a starting point. So now that you know what your base levels are, increase on a daily basis by 500 steps. That is a very rapid rate of increasing, but we have about 3 weeks left. And believe you me, 3 weeks is more than enough to make a significant difference. I have guys who I coach, and just within the first 1 or 2 weeks, they say to me, wow, subhanAllah, I feel so different. And the body is so amazing like that how it responds so quickly to stimuli. I have guys who have lost 7, 8 kilograms in just a matter of 2.5 weeks, 2 weeks. If, for example, any of us need to lose weight without crash dieting, this is something that you should also consider. Why? Because for every 1 kilogram of weight you lose, if you are overweight or if you need to lose weight, that's 4 kilograms of pressure off from your knees. And of course, that's something that will definitely enhance your experience, make you feel lighter, make you feel fitter, and so forth. And we'll speak briefly about how you can do some of these things. Sleep. Sleep is often something Sheikh Mishkat often lectures me about, something I actually suffer from. Our attitude towards sleep. A neuroscientist named Dr. Matthew Walker is quite very well known actually. As you know, he's on the front end of research into sleep and how it affects us. And one of the things that he says is that we as human beings are the only species of animals that purposefully deprive ourselves of sleep. Brothers and sisters, I think we should understand that sleep is a biological need. It's not a luxury. Of course, when we travel, oftentimes we are overstimulated by the things we see, the new places we're at, the excitement and so forth. And sometimes we think we can go on less amounts of sleep. However, not if you want to have a healthy Hajj. Sleep regulates everything from recovery to hormones to motivation to hunger to energy levels to cognitive function. And again, if you are that person who wants to have that laser sharp focus and wants to be physically able and capable and mentally be there, and connecting with your Lord, ultimately sleep is something that we should be getting plenty of. And how you may ask, how much is plenty of sleep? 7 to 9 hours. 7 to 9 hours. Of course, that's not necessarily always going to happen through the process of Hajj.
Yeah.
But as close as we possibly can, as much as we possibly can, when we are able, we should definitely rest. I'll give you an example of how sleep deprivation can suppress your immune system. Studies have found just a person, if they reduce their sleep for one night just to 4 hours, the body's ability to produce white killer cells, which is an essential part of the defense against viruses and cancer and so forth, reduces not by 10%, not 20%, but a staggering 70%.
SubhanAllah. Now,
70% is what your, white killer cells reduce by if you just get one night of 4 hours sleep.
yeah.
So another way.
So, subhanAllah, yani, I just want to add, brothers and sisters, from my experience, and from all of the guides who go, Actually, sometimes guides fall unwell as well, and usually it's the reason is sleep. Okay. And I must say, when you were talking about all the walking and extra walking, and if your body is not used to it, I just want to add, if you go out one day, say for example, and in a sort of practical, sort of real life sort of example, is that when you go on a trip or when you go to the museum, when you go to an attraction in or somewhere like a theme park or a park or somewhere, and you don't do that regularly, on that night you'll find that you sleep like a baby, right? Because your body automatically, it needs that recovery and that rest, right? So that walking has a sort of effect on your sleep, meaning your body is saying it needs to rest. But guess what we're doing, brothers and sisters? We're saying, no, I need to go to do something else now. I need to stay up. I need to go and do something else. And so all of this is interconnected. And I think Brother Azad, beautifully mentioned that, subhanAllah, this walking, if we're used to it from now, then your body will be conditioned in a way where you are. It's not as much, it's not exerting as much pressure onto your bodies, brothers and sisters, right? Uh, and yes, sleep is so important. And when we travel together, obviously you've seen sometimes whenever I can, I just get in another hour or two sleep. It's weird, but I do it so that we're able to again function and go to the next task and go to the next, and we're focused, right? And in ibadah and worship, and if we're falling asleep, right, or we're really tired, it's kind of it will affect your Hajj, and we want it that inshallah all of our Hajj inshallah is full of ibadah and quality ibadah as well. Some people overdo it as well, and this is something that I think Brother Zad alluded to as well. When you come in, first thing some people do is overdo it in the beginning, yeah. And what we say is, sort of build. Okay, don't overdo it. And that journey from the UK, because the night before, I know what happens, brothers and sisters. Even though we tell you so many times what's going to happen, and brother, as I said, mentioned about food, nutrition, and not eating unhealthy food, but also all your family going to come and see you. You're going to Hajj, right? And you probably still going to have butterflies and last minute packing. Please, 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 Raja and brothers and sisters, my kind, my request is, if you, because we want you to have a really good Hajj, right? And in the journey, um, if you haven't slept the night before, you have a long journey, you arrive in Mecca, then you perform the Umrah, or you go to Medina, and then you're not sleeping well and you're getting excited, and then what happens is Hajj time is here, and your body shuts down automatically. Your body, your immune system, as I just now gave you a stat, that 4 hours, if one night, if it's 4 hours sleep, this is something that I see, but now the stat just tells me, absolutely 70%, that difference, subhanallah. So do try. Obviously, practical sense, 7 to 9 hours might be not possible every single day, but where you can, it's talking about, we're telling, the advice here is the importance of sleep and regular sleep. Try to have regular sleep. When it's time, I say it's a very simple thing that my father as well, he's a guide for many years, used to say, when it's time to sleep, sleep. Very simply, in a very simple way. And when it's time to eat, eat. And that's it. When it's time for ibadah, what ibadah? And that's it. Just keep to your times and you'll find it easy, inshallah. Barakallahu fikum. Yeah, so regular sleep is really non-negotiable, as you said. Amazing.
Absolutely. And brothers and sisters, it's not exactly that, you know what, I didn't get 7 hours sleep, so therefore I'm not gonna whatever
No,
else.
no. Yeah.
There is a sliding scale, right? So as close as you possibly can. And if, for example, you can't get that, then as Sheikh Mishkat said, try to make up for it here and there when and as you can, as do the, brothers and sisters who are guiding. You'll see that they try to take naps here and there as much as they possibly can so they can recoup that energy and help guide the group as much as possible, inshallah. One of the ways in which you can regulate your sleep right now is to actually have a fixed, specific timetable for sleep, whether it's the weekend, whether it's the weekday, whether it's the bank holiday, whatever it may be. You have that fixed regular timetable of sleep and make that sleep, as Sheikh said, non-negotiable. Moving on to another concern or challenge, if you like, and the weather, the weather and the temperature. Okay. Um, from what I understand, and I think I may be wrong, that in the sun, the heat is likely to be 40 degrees, possibly 45. But Sheikh was saying
No,
just
no.
in
So we just got information that this year may be one of the hottest Hajj in many years. So, brothers and sisters, a word of sort of warning, and perhaps we have to be very extra sort of alert and careful this year. So, if that's the case, then we need to think about provisions for the heat, and that means staying out of the sunlight for even 10 minutes. Direct sunlight is a no-no. For me, is a no-no. Don't think this is London, or sorry, we came from London, we want a bit of vitamin D. And no, absolutely use the golf umbrellas. They call it the golf umbrellas, the short ones, not the long ones, because they're easy to carry. It might be the big ones, but the point is, I saw on someone shared on Instagram something, these umbrellas with the fans and things like that. There's so many types now out there, and there will be you have enough umbrellas from your service providers and from other. They'll sell it everywhere, so don't worry about taking it from London, or from home. But do ensure that you always be aware of direct sunlight. Stay out of the sun. And I give you one anecdote. Sorry, and it's important for everyone here. Many of our sisters, especially, may Allah bless them, may Allah accept the sabr and patience, because we have sabr in doing good deeds, as we mentioned in yesterday's lecture, and sabr in doing keeping away from maharimillah, from the forbidden things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prohibited us from doing. And from that is the sisters wear hijab, right? May Allah reward them. And this hijab will increase the heat on the head. And sisters, then, whilst I've maintained for years saying that you must drink as much water as you can, right? There's mineral waters, and there's unlimited mineral water in Mina, Arafah, Muzdalifah. Unlimited, inshallah. It's not like before, right? We used to have to go far to get water, right? Drink as much as you can. Sisters, I am going to the hospital with sisters, or the team are taking them to the hospital. We translate and we say, what is the issue? They say heat, sunstroke. I said, what do you mean? Like, we've told them. So I asked the auntie or the lady, this is a sister's thing. Sorry, don't mind me saying this. I know, but it's a common prevalent thing. Why? Because sisters don't want to go to use the loo in Mina. Okay, please. The water retention is little in this heat. You will lose that water. I don't recall going to the toilet in the day, because I could drink 20 cans, 20 drinks, because I'm working and I'm speaking and I'm in the heat, and I don't go to the loo. And I'm like, where did this water go to? Right? So sisters, now imagine sisters are not having any water, saying, I don't want to go to the loo. And so this is why they dehydrate. And what happens is they're out in the sun, and then before you know it, that's it. They are completely, what we say, kaput. Like, they can't move. We have to carry them the whole Hajj, post Hajj. It's a nightmare, because the whole body shuts down. Sunstroke is so dangerous, and it can affect your whole Hajj, unfortunately. And people don't listen. So my advice to you, brothers and sisters, good practical advice: sunlight, direct sunlight, use your umbrella straight away. If you have to go out, if there's a chance to sit in the shade, sit in the shade. Don't unnecessarily wander around outside. I'm going to get my vitamin, or I'm going to go out and have a walk around. Where you're told to walk, that's fine. Or stand. If you're in a queue, that's fine. But otherwise, you have your tents, you have your places of shade, natural shade. Stay in those places, please. Even outside of Ihram in Mecca and Medina. If you're going to Medina first, if you're going to Mecca first, whichever way. Please. That's a good piece of advice. You've got also, Sheikh, continue.
Yeah, so as the
Azad,
chef was
may Allah
saying,
bless you.
we anticipated that it might be 40 degrees, but actually now we're learning it might be closer to 50 degrees. That means in the shade, it might be 5, 10 degrees less, but then you'll also have at times AC cooled tents, and through which, as Sheikh mentioned in previous lectures, will vary. So during the day, you might find actually it's inadequate, but during the night, you might find it's really cold.
Yeah.
And uh, just to give you as the Sheikh was saying, he's drinking so much, but he's not having to use the lube. That's because you're losing that water. And according to the World Health Organization, a person can lose up to 10 liters of water a day when you're exercising in the, the extreme heat,
Okay.
10 liters a day. And that could amount from anything from 250 milliliters per hour to 1 liter of fluid in the intense heat. One of the things that I'd
Completely
recommend,
stats. Thank you so much.
yeah,
I'm learning. MashaAllah. May Allah bless you.
one of the things I'd strongly recommend to you, brothers and sisters, of course, is, and there's been a lot of discussion about this, is to buy some kind of sunscreen, something with SPF 50, ideally maybe and above, something strong. You should understand that if you apply this once, it's not a sufficient application, especially if you're out for prolonged hours. Every 2 hours or so is how often you should be applying this. Now, talking about weather and temperature, we often hear how the AC can make you ill or the cold can make you ill. But is that really the case? The answer? Well, yes and no. Um, it's not the alternating temperatures in and of themselves that make you ill. However, it's the conditions caused by the AC through dropping of temperatures and so forth that can cause you to become ill. So, for example, when you are coming in and out of AC controlled environments, there's a constant change of temperature and humidity, which can actually irritate your nasal passage, which is lined with mucosa. And that is one of the first lines of defense in terms of how your body is taking in like airborne viruses and so forth. If that dries out, it's much more easier for you to become ill and or become susceptible to illness. In addition to that, there may be other issues. Sometimes people crowd, where now obviously illness can pass on through easily and so forth. Um, but yeah, ultimately, it's not necessarily the changing of temperature, but it's how dry that temperature can become, which then dries out aspects of your parts of your body, which then makes you susceptible to illness. So, what can you do to try and moderate this, brothers and sisters? Try to moderate your use of AC. Of course, there's going to be, for example, for those of you guys who are sharing, in particular, sharing with people you don't know. I'm not saying don't use the AC. I'm not saying do use the AC or put it on full blast. Try and find a balanced way of doing this as much as possible. Of course, as the Sheikh said, staying out of the sun, using a UV umbrella,
Mhm.
uh,
Hydrate
hydrating well. Uh,
well, like super well.
Hydration, by the way, we have a whole slide on as well, just
Okay.
to push that, and I think that's in a couple of slides time. But these are some of the things that we can do, and heat exhaustion is real. Heat
Mm,
exhaustion happens as a result of you becoming dehydrated. Your body temperature increases. There's an inability to cause cool yourself, and therefore you suffer from that heat
mm,
exhaustion.
mm,
Moving on to nutrition. Brothers and sisters, my advice to you guys is eat healthy from now onwards. There might be a big question as to what is eat healthy. This is going to be very generic advice, but my advice to you guys is try to eat or choose lean sources of protein. Basic advice, increase amounts of your vegetable intake, in particular non-starchy vegetables, and reduce your fat intake. As mentioned before, if you are, if you need to lose some weight, this might be the time to moderate your intake. However, however, when you are in Saudi, you should not, if for those of you guys who do any kind of diets, this is not the time to go into a caloric deficit or do any kind of diet. That's my strong advice to you. It's like somebody who has gone on a long distance ride, if you like. I have a lot of friends who are cyclists, they go on long distance rides. They come to me and they're like, I don't get it, I can't lose weight. Why? Well, because when you're on like a distance, what do you call them? An endurance event.
mm,
You don't nourish yourself so you lose weight. You nourish yourself so you can complete that feat. And likewise, this is how you should eat during Hajj, that you nourish yourself for you to be able to fulfill your spiritual purpose, inshallah. And of course, that involves you being physical, moving around, doing so on and so forth. And of course, there's going to be much more of a demand on you. However, we will be served foods, and oftentimes there will be variety, in particular in the hotels and so forth, right? So, as much as you possibly can, moderate your intake so you avoid like junk calories. When I say junk calories, a lot of us go to foreign countries. Oh, alhamdulillah, we found halal this, halal that. I'm not going to even mention their names, but you know what I'm talking about. And we want to eat these things. Unfortunately, they're not very nourishing. They will give you calories, they'll give you energy, but they're not going to give you micronutrients that will actually make you feel good. And my advice to you is avoid those foods as much as you possibly can and eat actually wholesome foods. So even when you're in the hotels, try and choose leaner sources. Try and avoid spicy foods, although they don't, serve much spicy foods in a lot of the hotels that we go to. But there are some of these back alleyway, restaurants, and uh, sometimes hygiene is questionable. But choose your foods wisely as much as you can. As with the sunnah, eat in moderation. And of course, we know that is, one third food, one third water, one third air. But how do you gauge this? The stomach is an expanding organ. It's approximately 12 inches by 6 inches wide. And this expands to hold between 1.5 liters to 4 liters of food and water. So if you imagine 1.5 liters, it's like a bottle of Coke in your body, right? How do you gauge if you've eaten one third? A lot of people don't get this. What is one third of my stomach? My simple advice to you guys is after you've eaten, if you climb a flight of stairs and you feel as though you won't be breathless, you're probably in the right zone. You're probably in the right zone. And also, even within the hotel, they will always provide you very many healthy options. For example, fruits, fruit salads, vegetables. Try to eat those foods as much as you can. And in that hot environment, also eat foods which hydrate you. So things like soups and so forth. Avoid as much as possible all the processed sugars and processed foods as much as you possibly can. And you'll see, inshallah, the impacting effect it has, inshallah. Hydration is something which needs its own slide, and I'm just going to speak about this briefly. In UK conditions, for most of us who are in the UK, 2 liters a day is what is generally recommended, or 8 glasses. Brothers and sisters, if during your Hajj or during any part of your stay, the moment you become thirsty, that means you are already mildly dehydrated. You are already mildly dehydrated. In other words, you shouldn't wait to get thirsty as a cue in order for you to drink. You should be drinking, sipping continuously, small amounts, especially when we will have access to the most blessed water in the whole of the world, right? You should be drinking continuously. A lot of people ask about electrolytes. Electrolytes, should I add electrolytes? Absolutely add electrolytes. Yeah. You can buy them online, add them as a tablet, have one a day, or however many you need. Not too many, but yeah, add that to your drink. What are electrolytes? Electrolytes ultimately are minerals when dissolved in water conduct electricity. They include things like sodium, potassium, chloride, and these things, they have a particular function in our body. They help with our fluid balance, they help with muscle and nerve function as well. So sometimes you see somebody's, tired, they've got a cramp and things like that. This is where through excessive sweating, through diarrhea, through urination, this is how we can lose a lot of electrolytes. And my advice to you is stay topped up on those things as much as you possibly can. That was my last slide. And I just wanted to summarize, brothers and sisters, is that look, a few things for you to take away from this. This is the time to mentally temper yourself, understand the travel preparations you're going to undertake, understand what you will have to give into, like the Sheikh mentioned about, for example, anxieties about using public bathrooms and so on and so forth. Take necessary hygiene measures, whether that's washing your hand frequently, and that's not to be understated. Having sanitizers. Um, we spoke about getting active. So from now onwards, as much as you possibly can, my advice to you guys is be as active as you can. Avoid taking your car to work, walk to the masjid, take the stairs, have particular days in which you go out for prolonged walks. Improve your sleep. Sleep sleep hygiene includes how long you sleep and how good you sleep, right? Try to have a regular timetable, and that will improve both of these things. Temper yourself for the weather, and of course, that's by when you're over there, taking the advice that Sheikh has given. Nutrition, you guys understand that from now onwards, you should be eating well, so as your body is ready or getting prepared for what's to come. And of course, hydration is something we should be in a habit of now. Now, as a minimum, we should be drinking 2 liters. For those of us who currently don't, is something you should monitor. And when you're over there, definitely more than 2 liters a day is something you should be considering. And of course, as we said earlier, add some electrolytes. Other than that, Sheikh, do you have anything to add? And if not, we'll take some Q&A.
Yeah, no, just on that note, we have advised, it's just a piece of, it's just a sort of side observation that I've seen from just reminded me, brothers and sisters, also at the same time, the reminder is not to be have fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in terms of the amount of blessings that we have, and in terms of food and drink is plentiful, you know, and just be what we call attentive of not wasting, not taking unnecessary food, you know, extra. And I see this and I observe and I see how people take so much food and they don't eat it. And we're going to Mecca and Medina. Unfortunately, people go to Hajj. And this is just a piece of advice because uh, it's distressing to see the amount of wastage. People in Mina, you'll find they'll get a bottle of water. We've advised to drink water. So you'll get the mineral bottle, you drink, sip a little bit, right? If and then 5 minutes later it's gone warm, and or you can't tell, you're not holding it correctly in the right place near you. So you're now mixed up. You're not sure if it's another person's bottle. And I just find so many half drunk bottles everywhere, even though we remind people and it still happens. So it's just a sort of side note, but please, brothers and sisters, we need to fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know, people, you know, in famine at the moment, you know, they don't have water. Sudan, look at these countries. If you're in Hajj in the state of Ihram, you are drinking water. Okay, drink, please drink, but also keep your bottle, maybe mark it, get a permanent marker and just write your name on it and drink and finish what you have. Don't be excessive as well and waste, but do drink plentiful. That's really, really important. Sunglasses is important as well for so you can actually walk and see where you're going. It's very, very bright sunlight over there. So inshallah, I mean, mashallah, brother Azad, you've covered everything more or less. And there's always something that we can add, I'm sure. But these are the general, you know, our practical advices. You know, there's a lot of books out there which tell you this and this and this, and you got to carry this. But ultimately, the key components that I see, my observation from many, many Hajj is people are not uh, doing enough preventative measures for illness, meaning they're not resting, so they're not taking enough nutrition or energy. They're not eating well because they're scared of the toilets. Please don't be scared of the toilets. The toilets, the last thing you want is yourself in hospital, right? So the toilets are much better than it was, say, even 5 years ago, right? And so they're usable, right? Yes, there'll be queues, but it doesn't mean that you can't go in. You will be able to go in. Just pick a time that's not prayer time. Prayer time, everybody gets up to make wudu. Go in the breaks. Plan your time to go to the toilets. That's all. But the toilets are available. If everyone from the tents gets up at the same time, obviously it's going to be busy at that time. Yeah. So just have those things in mind and don't compromise on your sleep, your food intake, and your water intake. At the same time, rest. And obviously, I'm not saying sleep the whole Hajj. Nobody's saying that. You have to make the most of your Hajj as well, but be aware and attentive to your body. So think, okay, right now my body's saying I need to sleep. Let me get some sleep in. And this is the best advice we can give, inshallah ta'ala. But Jazakumullah khairan, brother Azad. Are there any questions? We can start maybe for 10 minutes, do some questions and go. We're supposed to actually finish a bit earlier.
One person raised their hand. I'm not sure if they're
Uh, these are
this,
old, actually. Hold on. From yesterday. Looks strange.
um,
Yes, hand sanitizer, even unscented. Yeah, so as we said, alcohol. Shall I answer these, Sheikh?
please.
Yeah. So is hand sanitizer allowed, even unscented? Well, it depends. I mean, most of them, as Brother Azad mentioned, if they have no alcohol, you can use that, no problem. There are some without alcohol. Majority have alcohol, but again, in regards to the whole usage of alcohol, there's a difference of opinion. There are two opinions, just to summarize quickly. One is that alcohol in form of usage in creams and cosmetics and perfumes is permitted, according to some scholars, to use because they do not deem it to be najis, impure, but it is haram to consume. Anything that intoxicates this khamr is not permitted. This is one opinion. The second opinion is that because they define um, the the alcohol to be impure, then they say that it is not allowed to use at all whatsoever. So these are two opinions. So whichever one you follow, in general, if you avoid alcohol, then don't use alcohol-based products. And if you do use, for example, items that have alcohol in it, because obviously I don't want to go into the details about the mas'ala now, but that is the khulasa, inshallah, the summary. Apologies.
Are
So
there
it is allowed, in my opinion, inshallah, as long as it doesn't have scent, inshallah.
uh,
Um,
are there scent-free sanitizers available?
yeah, there are. Yeah, there are. Um, I
Sure.
think you can answer that as well, Sheikh. Uh,
And it seems to be okay. Alhamdulillah.
okay.
Do you have any advice for pregnant women? No, pregnant women are in a distinctly different physiological state, and any advice to them would really be medical advice, which I wouldn't want to give. So it'd be best to speak to a registered medical practitioner.
As an imam who's been guiding, I can say to you at least that sisters who are pregnant, the real advice is just, I mean, it depends how many months pregnant you are, and that will, so that's different. It's different for each and every individual, but generally, if you're in crowds and things like that, always be a bit more aware, and I'm sure you will be. Have your mahram in front of you or behind you to sort of guard you in crowded areas, and because there can be a squeeze sometimes and things like that. Otherwise, just all of what we said today, I think is enough. I mean, if you take those advices, inshallah, you'll be fine. Inshallah, it's very normal. Many people go when they're pregnant to Hajj, so don't worry, inshallah.
Brother asks, can you please touch on the benefits of fasting in preparing for Hajj to improve both immunity and fitness? Look, as your health generally improves, your immunity improves. Your immune system is a system and it incorporates a number of different things. Fasting can be especially beneficial. I mean, it is beneficial physically, we know. But I done a webinar before Ramadan talking about the preparations for Ramadan. And of course, fasting in and of itself does have a benefit, especially when the fasting is done according to Sunnah. When you fast and you go from fasting to feasting, then unfortunately we nullify the benefits because we don't actually do it in accordance with the Sunnah. However, when we fast accordingly in preparation for it, and for example, for those of brothers who need that or sisters that need that reset, it can be immensely beneficial. But again, there are a few other things to consider. And is fasting uniquely beneficial? I cannot specifically say that, I work from an evidence-based perspective. We know the purpose of fasting is spiritual. I cannot specifically say from an evidence-based perspective that fasting is uniquely beneficial for Hajj, if that makes sense. But what I can say, overall, fasting definitely is beneficial and it can make you stronger as long as it's done properly. However, when you are fasting, doesn't necessarily mean you are strong during that period of that fast, if that makes sense. Sheikh, somebody asked, did all the prophets perform Hajj?
No, the Ibrahim alayhi salatu wassalam, the Hajj started from Ibrahim alayhi salatu wassalam, and it continued to the people, the pre-Jahiliyyah, uh, before Islam, people still, it was a custom of the Arabs to continue to do so. So this is what we know of. As for all of the prophets performing it, I'm not aware that all of them did. Allahu A'lam. I don't know. We
Will the
can
recording and
check
slides
for you,
be
inshallah.
will the recording and slides be available? Inshallah, we hope so, and hopefully it's something that will come to you, brothers and sisters, if you should you want it. Uh,
Barakallah feek.
this was a really interesting one, Sheikh. If I may ask, I might even answer on your behalf as well. From what I've heard, and based on food available around Mecca and Medina, nutritious food isn't readily available. What does Sheikh usually eat during Hajj to stay energized and healthy?
May Allah keep me healthy.
I mean, yeah. One, kapsa. No, I'm just joking. Chef, please.
Uh, you mentioned today all of the things. I think really nutritious food, I think the understanding, the definition of what is nutritious needs to be understood first, doesn't it? Because if you say that there's no nutritious food available around Mecca, Medina, that's not the case. Mecca and Medina, subhanallah, is the dua of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wassalam. رب اجعل هذا البلد آمنا وارزق أهله من الثمرات من آمن بالله واليوم الآخر. Dua of Ibrahim, every single thing in the world you can find there. Subhanallah in Mecca. It comes to Mecca. It was a trade route from the spices of India to the spices, whatever you want is available there. In fact, certain things that you won't find in London, you'll find there, right? So what we're saying is in Hajj time, if people told you that in Hajj time in particular, with a certain foods, look, if you're looking for a curry, some people really crave curries, right? And they want to have the um, curry and rice, and maybe they have it all the time, but and they're used to it. So when they see perhaps Arab food or continental food that is not so spicy, people need that spice, or they yearn for that spice, and they go and find like you mentioned, like a back alley sort of shop, really, to a restaurant. But look, and then they get that, and then they eat, and then you have to be aware of the hygiene of that shop. What we say, and I think this is one thing to bear in mind. You look at the food and look at the hygiene generally inside the shop, and if you feel you're okay with it, then that's fine, get it. But hygiene is important in the food that is prepared. For me, that's really important. I'm very particular about that. You know that, Sheikh. So
I think most
I,
people
I
are
think nutritious food, everything. I mean, fruit
sustainable, right?
that is peelable, yeah. So instead of cut fruit, if you really, so even fruit that is cut, if you can see if it's been prepared well, then you can eat that. Bismillah, it's in front of you. But if you see that it's not in a hygienic manner, being sort of provisioned or given in front of you, or sort of, then that's something that. So you have to make that decision yourself. But there is enough nutritious food. Um,
I
uh,
think the perspective the sister was maybe coming from was in and around the Kaaba, like, or the Haram, there's all of these fast food takeaways. And I think most of the brothers and sisters, they're on a half-board basis usually, right? Um,
yes, yes,
which means your breakfast and your dinner is provided. So only you might need to go out for a very light lunch or something like that. And if
sandwich.
that's the case, you find plenty of food. However, if you partake in this culture of eating out where you're going to these fast food places, of course, it's going to be either a pizza, a curry, or fried chicken, or something along those lines, which is going to be
Yeah,
quite heavy and not
in that
necessarily.
sense, yes, I misunderstood maybe then. Yeah.
But there are also options, as the Sheikh said, there are options for you to go out and eat light foods, eat fruits, and so on and so forth.
My father, do you know what he does? It's quite amazing. He will go into Bin Dawood or the grocery superstore, and he'll get flatbread, he'll get cucumbers, he'll get hummus and all these dips, right? You can find all the dips there, right? And he'll just bring that to the hotel and put it in the fridge, and he'll just feed everyone, subhanAllah, and eat from it as well. And it's so healthy and so nutritious and so, subhanAllah, tuna, whatever it is, and simple food, but it gives the energy, and you can find Bin Dawood, hypermarket, all of these shops, Nouri markets, all of these big supermarkets. They have. It's a bit different to here. It's you can find a wide range of food. Subhanallah,
Your
food.
sister, brother asked, or somebody asked, do we need to use a UV umbrella?
An umbrella, yeah. So an umbrella, that is, you must have an umbrella. The UV umbrella is better always because it has that protection. But the key point is to stay in shade. Okay, shade is important. Yes, you don't walk in direct sunlight at any point. It's a no-go. Like, you must have your umbrella, especially this year if it's going to be hot. There's
Can
no
we
no ifs and buts.
can we wear sunglasses?
Yes, you can wear sunglasses. Absolutely.
Can we let you know what hand sanitizer I use? Yes, I have this. It was called In Virtu alcohol-free hand foam sanitizer. I bought it from Amazon. Just have a look at alcohol-free hand sanitizer, inshallah. Um, Sister asked, can we use any sunscreen whilst in the state of ihram? Any sunscreen. I think by that she means if it's scented or has alcohol in it. Is that what she means?
I'm not sure, but we have spoken, and maybe this was asked before about this, so we can pass on that. If you have any questions, maybe direct it to us directly, inshallah, or ask us directly, inshallah.
Somebody asked, does electrolytes uh, give you diarrhea? I think maybe it's a very individual thing. Some people have said they've had stomach upsets. If you are going to take
Yeah, I
it,
mean, it's good to read the
yeah,
label and check with the doctor if you have any
issues with
sensitivity
that.
to it.
And try it out before you go. You can maybe buy a packet and see what works for you. Somebody asked me about the brand name. I personally use a dissolvable one. It's the brand is Zero, Zero, Zero. So have a look if that works. Um, what about old injuries? What can we do to prepare? What about parents who may struggle? What footwear do you suggest for men and women? I think with injuries, it's very specific to you, and you have to do th you know, you may need to, for example, see your physiotherapist. So without saying what the injury is, understanding the nature of the injury, how long you've had it, how what
Mhm.
aggravates it, you cannot give this kind of advice, I'm sorry to say. And the best way would be to speak to your GP first. And if he recommends that you speak to your physio and so forth and see what kind of strategies you can take, because there are people who are less able who do go into Hajj, right? And they use certain strategies. So, for example, you may not want to exhaust yourself if you have an issue in your knee and you know it's going to be aggravated by doing tawaf. Maybe you're going to have to do it in a wheelchair and so forth. So I can't specifically say.
Can I
Same,
add something?
please.
Yeah, sorry. So I've just want to add that obviously there are many people here perhaps watching and probably thinking, we talked about walking a lot, and maybe some of you maybe are not so mobile in terms of walking, right? You can't walk for a disability, due to a disability or due to some difficulty in your a previous injury. Now, on that note, right, in general, the advice is for those who are fit and healthy and mobile, right? But if there's somebody who can't walk, right, as much because they have a disability or because they need a wheelchair, that's something different. Please be aware, right? And remember, yes, just because, we want you to be best prepared, but maybe you will find that a lot of in the Hajj, what happens is there's shuttle service. You just literally get up from your tent, you walk down the aisle, and you go to the gate, and then you just hop onto a shuttle bus, and then you sit or stand, but you don't walk, and it drops you to the next point from Mina to Arafah, about a few miles, a couple of miles, right? It takes about 15, 20 minutes, right? And then you didn't walk right there. But when you're in Arafat, then again you stood up you walked to the tents and you stood up. There's not much walking here, but there is walking when you are perhaps or standing for a long time. When you're performing tawaf, when you're performing sa'i, when you are walking to jamarat. Now, if in those cases, brothers and sisters, you can always either so for example, if it's jamarat, if you're really unwell and you can't walk, then if there is a valid excuse, then you can deputize someone else to throw the stones on behalf of you, cast the stones on behalf of you, and that's something you need to discuss with your group, your guides at that point, not now in Hajj, inshallah, in the tents. But again, if you're in, say, for example, in general, we advise that everybody tries. If you're about able to walk a little bit, do the tawaf, do the tawaf, and then after the tawaf, by walk, and then if you're tired, the sa'i is quite difficult, right? And what you can do is just hail. You can just grab um uh, a wheelchair, carry cash with you. Extra cash in Hajj time, not like Umrah. It'll be a little bit more expensive. So think about £30 each time, just to be safe. So you're talking about 150 reals rather than normally 50 to 100. It's a bit more because there's more demand, more need. So carry that with you, and then somebody will push you between the places. So don't worry. For those of you who are worrying that you can't walk, absolutely, it's a bit last minute, and don't get anxious over this. But this is the advice so that you have, for those who can, and for those who can't, who are walking or able to walk. For example, you might have a mahram or someone with you in the group who will support you. There'll be other staff members. Everybody, everybody gets together. We're all helping one another, inshallah, to perform the Hajj. So that's, we understand that, and that's different. So you will have um, you don't need to worry about, that you can't walk in for long distances. There is a provision for those people, but for general people, you should be walking more. That's the key advice. Sorry, I had to add that in.
Oh, please. What footwear do you suggest to men and women? One thing I will add on this point, and Sheikh can answer what best type
We
of things.
we've got to close in a few minutes, so we'll take two more questions if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. I would recommend whatever footwear sisters you are using, that you currently start using it now, so you break into them at the very least. Obviously, brothers in ihram would be wearing sandals, and of course, if you can break them in, if you can't wear them outside because at the moment the weather's not so great, but when and as you can, wear them and get used to them. If you can't wear them outside and they're brand new, at least try to break them in inside. But in regards to what type specifically, Sheikh, do you have any suggestions?
For sisters, there's no actual guide, meaning they're able to wear sandals, shoes, trainers, whatever. There's no restriction for women in the state of ihram. So therefore, you can perhaps even wear trainers, Skechers, things like that, which are comfortable. Yes, it will be hot, so perhaps lighter socks, things like that. But good footwear is important in Hajj. If you feel really like it's too warm, then remember if you're walking outside the ground is so hot, brothers and sisters, in Saudi, that you will feel the heat. If you wear flip-flops, you will feel the heat through your sandals. So don't buy flip-flops that are very, very light. You will feel very hot in them, right? Because the heat comes from the tarmac on the ground. So good footwear is essential. Personally, apart from the state of ihram, I wear trainers, running trainers for men. Okay, so in the state of ihram, I wear sandals, and any form of sandal, in my opinion, is okay, but there's a difference of opinion on this. You need to check with your guide, but in general, wear good footwear that is comfortable and durable is key. Because if you walk in crowds, if somebody steps on your heel or steps on your flip-flops, and that's it, you've lost your flip-flops, and then what happens is you don't have sandals and you're walking in the heat and you will burn your feet in the ground. It's that hot, so be aware. So um
My
do
apologies. I know Sheikh Mishkat has a meeting in literally 1.5 minutes. We have run over by quite a bit.
but we
Um,
can see that there's a lot of questions, and inshallah yani in your what we would suggest perhaps, Brother Azad, is that where there are more questions, you can raise that with your guides, inshallah ta'ala, and they will be happy to answer your questions bi'idhnillahi tabaraka wa ta'ala.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you everybody for joining. And inshallah, with that, we'll conclude the session. Sheikh, any final words?
Final words is thank you to Brother Azad actually. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you. He has a wealth of experience, and I've learnt a lot today from you. And in terms of practical advice, I hope everyone benefited. There's really, really important small pointers that we've kind of, reminded you of, and the story about the lady who we took to the hospital, and what happened is she said, the doctor said, well, she's had a heat stroke. And I said, well, hold on a minute. I've told her to drink. And then I asked the lady, I said, did you drink water? She said, no, you did tell me to, but I didn't. I said, why? Because I didn't want to use the toilets. I was like, what? So maybe that's just one thing to take away and to remember. And then that was it. We had to carry her throughout the whole Hajj. It was very tough for her. So please, look after your health, take rest, and may Allah bless you, Brother Azad, uh, for all of your slides today. And I'm not sure if you're able to share it, or let us know, inshallah ta'ala. And it will be recorded, and you can, inshallah, we'll share it with you, bi'idhnillahi tabaraka wa ta'ala. Thank you so much. I'll probably end with the dua of istighfar, if that's okay. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك وصلى الله وسلم على سيدنا وحبيبنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. Thank you so much for attending. Thank you.